All right, can I have everyone's attention, please? So if at any point in time you cannot hear me, let me know and I'll use the microphone. My name is Laura Wentz. I'm the president of Philly CLUW, Coalition Labor Union Women. We are a co-ed coalition fighting for women's rights, union rights, worker rights, human rights, and Mother Earth's rights throughout the country and the world. We have partnered with Philadelphia Now to put on this workshop for you. Philly CLUW and Philly Now has sponsored the making of all the materials that we're handing out, the ones that say labor donated on it by Philly CLUW. That was co-sponsored by Philadelphia Now, National Organization for Women. Both CLUW and Now work together fighting for women's rights, reproductive rights. We're both pro-choice groups, just as a clarification. We fight for pay equity, paid sick leave. We like to empower women to run for office, whether it's within their union, within a group they are a part of, and obviously run for a political office. We believe there aren't enough women in office. And to that point, one of the handouts on the table in the back was from the Center for American Women and Politics. This is from the New Jersey group, and they have a lot of different handouts, but I thought that this one was particularly interesting. It talks about women of color that are elected to office in 2017. There are not enough women in general, and there are not enough women of color. So I just wanted to point this out to you. If you didn't get one, there's one on the back on the table. Because we worked so much on empowering women to run for office, and we need like-minded men too, right? Because we're not going to succeed fighting for women's rights or families' rights or anyone's rights if men are not working with us and standing by our side and also empowering them to run for office. So I am speaking to you gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming. Also need to mention that it takes women 7 times to be asked to run for office before they consider themselves worthy enough to run for office. Because when we wake up in the morning as women, we think about all the things we got to do, right? Or I'm not qualified, I don't have enough knowledge or skill in that particular office to run for office, where most men wake up and say, hey, I feel like running for president today, so I'm going to go run for president, as an abstract. So, and also point out that this training itself is nonpartisan. Both CLUW and Now are nonpartisan organizations. The only difference is Philadelphia Now does have a pact, and they do endorse candidates, and Southeastern Pennsylvania now has a pact as well, and they do endorse candidates. But for the purpose of this training, we're taking the nonpartisan approach, doing the whole concept of everyone is welcome. We are inclusive versus exclusive, and we want to share the knowledge. And for running for election board, the positions you would be running for are nonpartisan positions. So it works out well to come from a nonpartisan perspective, even though when I step out of this workshop and I take my nonpartisan hat off, I am very partisan, but in this situation, I'm going to be nonpartisan. Okay? And you may find me catching myself and then reapproaching my wording. Also, I should also let you know that I am slightly dyslexic, so I may and will mess up words and terms, and if I don't pronounce your name properly, that's why. So I just want to throw that out there. I also would like to ask Nancy to come up for a moment and give us a little introduction. And come on. I'm also a theatrical lighting designer and stagehand by trade, so I'm all about the crossfade from one person to the next. So, crossfade.
Hello. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much to Laura. We're so jazzed to have this. This is hopefully the first of many times we get people in a room together to get excited about running for local positions. So we're here as part of Philly UP, Philly United for Progress. I think a bunch of you in the room know about the group or part of the group, but for those who don't, we are, Mimi, correct me where I'm wrong, we are a grassroots intersectional feminist organization dedicated to promoting progressive ideals.
All right. So
There we go. And protecting democratic institutions in Philadelphia.
so and Philly CLUW and Philly Now, or All Now and CLUW, are right in the same plane. So we will continue to work together in the future.
Absolutely. So what else was I going to say?
Oh, I do have to say I did forget to do one thing. So I'm asking every woman in this room to run for office. That is the first time I'm asking you.
So I'm Nancy, and I'm asking every woman in this room to run for office. That's number 2. We're going to get you to 7 by the end of the day.
I'm Gigi, and I'm asking every woman in this room to run for office. I'm Gigi, and I'm asking every woman in this room to run for office.
I'm Trudy, and I'm asking every woman in this room to run for office.
I'm Stephanie, and I am running for office after I leave.
Awesome. So yeah, that's what we're here to do, get you all psyched about elections board. Laura's going to do a lot of the talking. I'm going to interject here and there with a couple things. Did everyone grab hopefully a packet of info? There's a handbook that Laura's going to be walking us through. There's a sample petition in there and a couple other things like that. So if you don't have them, go on towards the back. We'll make sure you get them all.
And also at the end of the training, you can feel free to snag anything that's on the table, extras, voter registration forms, anything. If there's anyone you know that didn't make it today and you want to share the knowledge, please share. We want to share. We're part of the share knowledge to empower everyone to succeed versus keeping the knowledge to ourselves so that only we succeed. That's not our role. I come from the world of women who open the door and then leave it open and reach back and pull other women through the door with them. That's what I'm about. And I'm hoping that you are the same. And by the way, you're nodding. I think you are. So I'd like to ask Carrie to come up and tell us a little bit about the space that we are in.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Morgan, and I'm the Executive Director of New Century Trust. And you may have seen on the outside of the building, we are labeled as New Century Guild, which is an organization that was started by women for women in 1882. So we've been around 135 years. And we started to help working women who were entering the workforce. We were a very radical labor organization that was doing investigative reporting into sweatshops. We were doing micro-lending, and we wound up working on the suffrage issue. So we've been at this a long time, but we're in a new phase of our evolution, and we really want, we're so happy to have this meeting here, and we want to get everybody engaged. And our new goal is to really rally the greater Philadelphia community to end the inequality, political and economic inequality facing women and girls. So we hope you'll join us in that. We have a couple of events coming up in March. We have a feminist street art event, which should be fun for like $5. You can come and work with Ishnitz and Blur and create art that may or may not go up on the street. And then a Women in Wine event too. So I'm going to pass around a sign-up sheet. If you're interested, we'll send you information.
There is a workshop agreement I want to go through. I, of course, left the big page of it at home. So just to make sure we're all on the same page together, the first part of the agreement is that we all listen to each other. The second part is that you value your own experiences. The third is keep an open mind because not everyone's coming from the same place. The term step up, step back. If you find that you are someone who often speaks all the time at trainings and events, I'm asking you to step back so that those who don't always speak get an opportunity to speak. There's a handout in the back. We're fighting the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. We are working with Insure PA to gather stories of where the Affordable Care Act, Medicaid, or Medicare helped you or someone in your family in some way. We're asking you to reach out to them and tell them your story. I believe Elizabeth Warren was already using the stories in Congress to fight the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. They need more. They need it on all levels. So there will be attacks locally as well as what's happening in Congress. So please check this out. Please share your story. We need everyone to take part. There's also a handout on the table, Coalition Labor Women, Philly CLUW. These are radio show segments that we did, I'm the producer of and co-hosted many of them, union women talking about women and families issues. They are podcasts. You can go back and listen to them, find the segment and listen to it. On the back side is a call to action, bills that are coming to Harrisburg or that are in Harrisburg that are in motion that involve women's reproductive rights, the paid sick leave bill here, that law that we have in Philadelphia. There's a preemption bill where they're trying to get rid of our paid sick leave. Attacks on union pensions and whether or not to become a right-to-work state, as well as attack on public teachers' sick leave and bereavement leave. Those bills are in Harrisburg and in motion. There's also some other actions, so I just wanted to, I know you guys are an action-based group, so I wanted to let you know there are things going on around you. That'd be great if you can take part. Okay, so, sorry, I'm just verifying my list. All right, so let's get into it. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. I will call on you. And just be aware that I do talk a little abstract, but I do get back to the point. If I say that I'm on my way to it, just hold your question until a little later so that we make sure that I've covered it before you try and hop ahead. Okay? Are we cool? Great. Okay, so as I said before, there aren't enough women in office. We have not had a female mayor. We have not had a female governor of Philadelphia. So this is where it's fabulous that there are so many women in this room because we need all of you to run for office in some level, somewhere along the way. I just want to let you know that this handbook was designed for Philadelphia and Delaware County. So some of the terminology that I will be using is not necessarily correct for you, but it's correct for Delaware County. So I made some adjustments where in the, on the terminology side, the smallest political unit is called a precinct in Delaware County, but it's called a division here in Philadelphia, okay? I come from Delaware County, so I'm putting the two together. And then each precinct/division is in wards for you all or districts for Delaware County, okay? So I use them, they're the most common terms. Your city of Philadelphia is in the county of Philadelphia. Okay, so there are some sections that I will skip over because they're specific to Delaware County, and you don't need to know that because you do all live in Philadelphia, right? Yes? Okay, great. I just want to make sure. And also on your voter registration card, it should tell you exactly what your ward is and your division is. So for some people, it will be 5-7, or so 5 would be your ward, and the second number is your precinct/division. Okay? Does that make sense? So the election board is those who work in your polling station. You have a judge of elections, you have a majority inspector, a minority inspector, a clerk, and a machinist in most situations. Okay, great. So your judge of elections is basically the gatekeeper of the polling station. They are in charge. They are the final decision on what takes place. Inside the polling station is strictly nonpartisan for those elected officials. For those that are the judge of elections, the majority inspector, minority inspector, clerk, and machinist, those people are nonpartisan. So that means you cannot do campaigning or electioneering inside the polling station. You can't wear a pin inside. You can't hand out literature about a particular candidate if you're one of those 5 people. If you are a voter coming in, you can be wearing a button because you're a voter, but you can't hand out literature to other voters and ask them to support a candidate. Once you're inside the polling station, it's nonpartisan. But as a voter, if you come in with your pin, by law, Pennsylvania law, you can walk in with a button, okay? But there are places that will ask you to take it off, and you can pick your battles whichever way you want to do it, okay? And then the judge of elections is responsible for picking up all the information from your election board, which is in Philadelphia. And
Depending on your division, there's places to go to.
okay, so as judge of elections, you pick up all the materials that are needed for the polling station. You take it to your polling station. You're setting up anywhere from 6:15 to 6:30 in the morning. If you have more than 2 machines, you should really be there at 6 to 6:15. If you only have 2 machines, then you want to be there no later than 6:30 to set up. To open up your polls, you need your minority inspector and your majority inspector. You need the 3 of you to be there to verify that all the machines are at 0, that there's nothing funky, that they have some zip ties on things verifying that they're closed, and you clip them and you go through a process. They give you all the instructions. You get your machines set up. You have all kinds of literature that you tape outside the door or in the close proximity. Each polling station is different. My polling station is in a basement in the back of someone's house. So my situation out in Upper Darby is a little different than what you guys might have. It could be in a garage, it could be in a church, it could be in a school, it could be at a gas station. It's really however it worked out. So the spacing, if it's in a room like this, then there's like a dividing line between the voting space and beyond. So if you're a watcher is someone who is representing a candidate and comes in and watches the voting process, and they have to be 10 feet away from the election zone, right? In a space like this, they would basically clarify, this is the point, you guys stay here, you can watch, but a watcher can't stand over a clerk while they're at the table and looking over their shoulder. That's not kosher, right? So the judge of elections is the ultimate decider. If there's a watcher that's hovering over a clerk, it's the judge of elections that tells them to step back or get out. Judge of elections can kick you out of a polling station if you're a watcher. Okay? They have the ultimate say. The judge of elections is also the person that interprets any questions that come up. They're the final word. They're supposed to understand and know Pennsylvania law, voter section of the law, to make sure that no one is discriminated against for any reason. And basically, you are the keeper of the zone. At the end of the night, at 8 o'clock, so the poll must open at 7 a.m., and then at 8 p.m., when the polls close, if there's a line, the judge of elections needs to go out and verify who the last person is. And if you are able to stand out there and watch the line to make sure that last person is the last person, no one cuts in front, things like that. Or if you have someone that you trust who will watch that for you, then you do it that way. And then at the 8 o'clock mark, any watchers that you have need to be inside your polling station, and at 8 o'clock the door closes, right? And then and no one leaves and no one comes in. And at that 8 o'clock mark, you go through the process of going through the machines, counting getting the tapes on the 2 machines, whatever your machines are, counting any absentee ballots you may have gotten in the mail. They will be there. There's a process with the absentee ballots, and then if during the day someone came in and they are like, you discover that they're not on the books, they're not in your books, and they ask for a provisional ballot. So there's a handout on provisional ballots. They cannot deny you a provisional ballot. So in my precinct, in this last election, there was a lot of things that went wrong, which is why I'm doing this training, because it freaked me out. There was an Asian couple that showed up 10 minutes before the polls closed. it just turned out that they were not on the books, and they were trying to send them to a whole different polling station at 3 minutes before 8 o'clock. There's no chance they were going to make it there, right? So I went down with the wife and I said, hey, can't she have a provisional ballot? The judge of elections said no. That's against the law. Everyone has a right to a provisional ballot. The provisional ballot, 7 days later, you have to prove that you are who you say you are. They also take the provisional ballots and they compare them to the rolls to, one, verify that you are a registered voter, to make sure you did not then go and vote at your personal polling station. And if they come up with anything that's out of line, the provisional ballots get thrown away, right? But if you are a registered voter, you never voted at your polling station, and you filled out a provisional ballot, technically within 7 days, they are supposed to process one, you have 7 days to prove that you are who you said you were, go into court and prove it, as well as they count the vote. Now in practice, they don't count the votes unless it's a close race, which kind of breaks the law, but that's kind of how it happens in reality. But they should never deny you a provisional ballot. Or if you're like on your way home and there's, a tractor trailer, huge accident, and you don't think you're going to make it home in time, but you're passing a polling station, go there and ask for a provisional ballot. That way your vote has a chance of counting, versus if you get home and it's too late, then you didn't get to vote. But if you get home and you can vote, you vote, and then they toss your provisional ballot. I was told because I'm the 4th district leader in my area, and I went to different polling stations on November's election, and I was told by other judges' elections, they were told by media that that's how fraud happens. That's a lie. That's a huge lie. I hope you guys did not run into that here in Philadelphia, but in Upper Darby we did. So everyone's allowed a provisional ballot, so please take that handout. Okay, so I'm giving you a basic overview. There are going to be trainings closer to the election by your county Bureau of Elections, but I'm just giving you a basic overview so you have an idea of what you would be walking into. So for inspector, the inspectors work with the judges of elections, helping them to get the polling stations up and running. When you run for the position, you run for inspector itself. The person who gets the most number of votes is the majority inspector, and the person with the second highest number of votes is the minority inspector. Okay? There are sometimes people think that if a particular party has the judge of elections, that they automatically have the majority of inspector. That is not the case. It's about the highest number of votes. So there is a situation in my area where the judge of elections belongs to one party and the majority inspector belongs to a completely different political party. You had a question?
Yeah, when you run for election board, do you run generally for a position on the election board, or do you declare that I want to run for judge of elections, or I want to run for majority, or I want to run for inspector?
Yes, you must declare if you're running for judge of elections or for inspector, because the required number of petition signatures and so forth is different. And also when you show up, your name will show up on the ballot under the judges of elections options, and then inspectors.
But if you run for inspector, it's just a follow-up question. If you run for inspector, if you're the person who gets the second highest amount, there's like a trickle down. If you don't win majority, you might win the next one.
Right. If you get the second highest, you're the second highest vote winner, you are the minority inspector, regardless of party. So there are some situations where the same party holds the majority inspector and the minority inspector, even if the judge of elections is a completely different party, or all three are the same political party.
Nobody knows that this is taking place, and I see that you have a total position. So if nobody runs, then what happens?
So then you have the situation where there isn't anyone. And so on election day, whoever shows up, there's a curbside election on election day for whoever's there gets curbside elected prior to 7 a.m. to be the election board to get the polling station up and running. Yeah. And sometimes your election board they may be elected, but they just don't show up. Sir?
Is it the same in every county?
Yes. Yes. In that regard, yes. Every county has curbside elections, or they have curbside appointments depending on the situation. So if you are an inspector and you are running late, if you get there after 7 o'clock, there's a chance that, especially if you are of the party with less representation at the polling station, you may have been replaced by the judge of elections prior to that point in time. And also keep in mind, at this point in time, a lot of people who are part of the election board, some of them have done it for a long time and they're looking to step down, but there's no one coming up behind them willing to do it. Or if you yourself have gone and voted and you felt discriminated against, all the more reason to run, and their jobs are up for re-election this year, just like the opportunity for you to run for that position. They all must run for that position. And there is a number that I forgot to read off. In Philadelphia, there are 1,700 divisions in Philadelphia, which makes 5,100 elected positions for a board of elections per polling station. So there's 5,100 elected positions that are open, basically for re-election or election of a new person. That's a lot of potential elected positions. And for election board, you only need to take off 2 days out of the year. Once in the spring for the primary and once in the fall for the general election. The fall one is a formula. It's the first Tuesday after the first Monday. In the spring, it's kind of, I have no idea what their formula is, except for if it's not a presidential election, it's in May. If it is a presidential election, it's 3 weeks earlier in April somewhere. Beyond that, I have no idea how they figure it out. But so it's 2 days out of the year that you need to take off and give up your whole day for, right? And then you just have some trainings to go to prior to that, right? The other thing you get to do is canvass your division and talk to your neighbors about this election, about the fact that you're running as well. And I'll get into that in a second because I started to hop ahead. So it gives voter contact. It helps to empower people to come out and vote, especially when they realize that their neighbors are running, right? So one of the things that you'll do when you go to run, you're going to have to get petition signatures. They say, since I hopped ahead anyway, it's, all right. So there's a certain number of petition signatures. The petition itself is 25, or is it 25? Yes. So this is what your petition would look like. And you can get 25 spots. I would try and fill at least one full petition. You don't need this many, but if there is a race and there is someone that it turns out that you're challenging, you want to make sure that all of yours are solid, and it also gives you more voter contact because you'll go and talk to all your neighbors and let them know that you're running for office, that you're running for this position. They talk about on the off-year elections that people don't realize that there are elections every single year, every single spring and every single fall. This is a way to encourage people to come out and vote. We need people to come out and vote so that what we're running into right now never happens again, right? So if we can use this election this year to get them into the habit of voting every spring and every fall, then come 2018, and having all of you go out and canvass your community and let them know, hey, there's another election. This is the date. This is when. Please consider coming out and voting. Now, as election board, you're nonpartisan, so you need to make sure that what you do outside of election day is your prerogative. but in order to maintain the respect of your community, you may not want to do a whole lot of electioneering for a particular candidate and maybe focus more on registering your neighbors as voters, making sure everyone's registered to vote, make sure they all know that there's an election, hand out nonpartisan comparisons between candidates, things like that to encourage them to come out and vote. Because if you're a hardcore supporter for one of the candidates, it's going to be hard for them to trust you if you're also the judge of elections of your polling station. So you could change it and focus on the issues and who's supporting certain issues and do it that way. So this is an example of the petition that you would have. When you have them fill out the petition, I know I'm hopping around a little bit, but you want to make sure that they sign their name, their cursive signing, they print their name, but print their name of how it is on the election, on their voter registration card. Put their address and the date, and you have so street and address. Since you guys are strictly Philadelphia County, you don't have to put your city because it's Philadelphia. And make sure that no one use quotation marks or dittos. That makes their signature invalid. Or if they make a mistake and they print their name first and then sign their name, you got to cross it out and have them fill out the next line. So you want to make sure it's filled out correctly, okay? And on the back, there's the notary side of the equation. Don't fill this out until you're in front of the notary. Also, don't have a notary notarize your petition prior to the signatures being put on here. A House of Representative in the 164th had a lot of her petitions notarized as of January 7th last year, which was a full month before the petition signature time period. Thusly, all but 301 of her signatures were thrown out, and she was required to have 300. So if they had gotten a few more, she may have never made it to the ballot. So just keep that in mind. And the more signatures you get, the more voter contact you have, and the more people are going to come out and vote because they've had a voter contact with you. How many people in the last so many years came out to vote because a candidate knocked on your door and had a conversation with you? Right? So no politicians got a chance to knock on your door? All right, well, that's bad. So you guys are going to be the equivalents of getting out to your precincts and letting everyone know there's an election. Because I bet you will have a much greater turnout because you knocked on the doors of all the same people in your party in your precincts. Right, and also, so in the yellow flyer on the back table is the important dates. So that gives you when the petitions start, so from, as she said, February 14th to March 7th. Recommend turning them in prior to March 7th. If you wait until March 7th, you have to get them in. I would definitely get them in before 4:30 of that day in order to make sure they get counted. I would definitely be turning them in long before that point in time. And it also has the other important dates that you need to know. Within your party, within your precinct or your division. Okay, and so there are street lists that you can get that give you who to knock on what doors. They also recommend going to doors where there's multiple voters living in that house under that party so that you can get multiple signatures at the same time. I believe it's in here somewhere, but I'm not spotting it right away, that for inspector, you need 5 signatures, and for judge of elections, you only need 10. So it's a minimal amount. They recommend you get 2 to 3 times the amount of required. I would say get as many as you can, because the more signatures you get, the more voter contact you have. And as she was saying, yes, I actually like to go out at least once a month to knock on the doors and remind people that there's an election coming up, to remind them who is running. This year's elections is the people that most directly affect everyone, right? It's your council, it's controller, it's it's, people, unfortunately, you don't have a school board option, which we all want to get rid of the SRC. But in the surrounding counties, they have school boards. So it's your local commissioners and treasurers and so forth that directly affect your day-to-day life. And so many people are so focused on the presidential election, they don't realize that these are the ones that really, they're the ones that hike up your taxes more so than Congress does on a regular basis. So you want to pay attention. Yes?
Just as a point of clarification, even though these are nonpartisan positions,
Yes.
the party that you run under is a party that you will register as a voter, correct?
Yes.
So when you're going around, if you're a registered Republican or a registered Democrat, you can be a registered independent and also run, but that election is included in the primary.
Correct. Correct.
So whatever you are registered, when you go to get your street list, you're looking for the street list of registered Republicans or registered Democrats, whichever corresponds to your party. And that's who you have to get signatures from, registered voters that correspond with the party with which you are registered. Even though the position is a nonpartisan position, which means it just is polling place specific, not party specific, if you are a registered Democrat or Republican, you are running as a registered owner of the position. So that's like one area of confusion sometimes when you're explaining like what the vote is versus the party.
And also, some of the street lists have everyone listed. So in Delaware County, it's everyone, and I just go and I highlight all of my party. So I knock on, for the primary, I'm only knocking on those doors.
That's how Philly's lists are as well.
But they may not know. So go by what's on the street list and make sure that when they sign their petition, they sign it exactly the way that it's on the street list. Because the street list is that they can't sign via nickname or the initials. Sometimes but if they're getting very meticulous, you want to make sure it's exactly the way it is on the street list, because that's what it is in the rolls in the voter registration world. Okay, so moving on, yeah, go.
If there are addresses that are not registered to vote while you're out canvassing, you can stop by, drop off a voter registration form. We have them here with us, so take them with you. The recommendation from the County Board of Elections and the voter registration office is don't ask them to sign your petition that day.
Right.
Drop off that form and then come back to them and make sure they got you sent that form in, and then you can ask them to sign your form if it's the same body and all that.
And you can also register online through Pennsylvania. They have a voter registration online. So I'm come from Delaware County, and if you're a member of a certain political party, a certain political party, their voter registration forms get lost if you go through the county. But if you register directly with the online, then they never get lost. Okay, and another thing is also, if you ever move from one place to another, you need to redo your registration. You have up to a year to redo, which means that you must go back to your original place to vote, but you have to change it so that you can go to the local polling station of where you live. Okay?
I had a question about moving. So these are a 4-year position.
Yes.
Move within that 4-year period.
Then you're moving out of that position.
Okay. So you then there'd be like a special election or
No, they're normally appointed. You normally is to send a letter to if you're not to the Board of Election, the county basically, to let them know that you are moving, or if you're, because if you're the judge of elections, people are supposed to let you know. But if you're the judge of elections, I still think you need to, in theory, let the election bureau commissioners know that you are leaving, so that they know that they're going to need to appoint someone to fill that void, type of thing. Okay?
At what point do you learn how many other people are running for the position? Who else is running for the position?
You may encounter them while you're canvassing. You may also discover it once you get on the ballot. But you can also check with the commissioners to see who is currently in the equation, and then see if they're going to run again. But all right, so I'm going to continue on. The clerks themselves So the clerk is someone who assists the voting process, right? There are 2 books in your polling station. There's a big book, which has everyone's information. That's the place where you sign your name when you go to vote. It also has a column on the side that says, you know, this person might need to show an ID. If it's your first time voting, you present your ID and your voter registration card. If you haven't voted in like 4 years, then they ask you to show your ID again. But if you vote every spring and every fall, there should not be a note saying that you need to show ID. And if there is a note, you need to call them out on it, you know, and or notify the Bureau of Elections that you vote every spring and every fall. Why do you keep asking for my ID? So there is a handout on the allowed voter ID. There was a voter ID law that was really, we call it the voter suppression law, that had passed, and then luckily the Pennsylvania Supreme Court deemed it unconstitutional. It was designed to discriminate against women and minorities. So this is the actual ID list. So you can use your driver's license, you can use your passport. If you're a student, you can use your student ID, your employer, if you're an employee ID. You can also use, non-photo IDs, a firearm permit, a current utility bill, a current bank statement, a paycheck, a government check. These are all things that you can use to prove that you are, who you say you are, which is very different than the more recent voter suppression bill that was really designed to discriminate against women because women's driver's license the name on their driver's license did not necessarily match their birth certificate, right? Because society wants women to get married and change their name, but then they were holding that against women who changed their name on their driver's license, and then it didn't match with their birth certificate, right? Or if you were born in the South and you were born in a house, there was no birth certificate, right? Or older women who lived in senior homes that needed to show their marriage license to prove that they are who they said they were and didn't necessarily have it anymore, right? So there was a lot of discrimination that went on with that voter suppression ID law that luckily got canned. We went back to the original voter ID law that had already existed that didn't discriminate against people. So that's this, so that you want to make sure you have that knowledge under your belt. And then the clerk itself is appointed by the minority inspector, okay? So I talked about the big book. So when you're working at the table and you're making sure people sign, make sure they sign the correct line that is associated to their name. If they sign the wrong name, sign on the wrong line, then it messes up the next person who comes whose line they signed under. And that's where things start to get shady. So make sure you pay attention, because that happened in my polling station. And also in my polling station this past election, 90% of the non-white people were asked for their ID, regardless of how often they vote, which is against the law. So I found a replacement for that judge of elections. I just spoke with her today. She's going to run, my neighbor. She's awesome. So, that's part of the reason why I'm here, is because I want to make sure no one gets discriminated against at their polling station. So. All right, see, you're hopping ahead, but yes. All right, we're getting there. So I'm going to tackle yours in 1 second. So the machine inspector / operator is appointed by the city commissioners of Philadelphia, but they take the advice of the local committee members. So just as an FYI, so in theory, in the primary, this is where it really comes up. When you're signing in as a voter, you come in and sign in. The people at the table are not supposed to yell across the room, "It's a Democrat, she's a Democrat, she's a Republican." That's not supposed to happen. That's actually supposed to be a semi-private conversation between the machinist and the voter. Now, the judge of election is supposed to verify that, yes, they gave you the right party, but it's not something that's supposed to be yelled across the room that I understand many people have encountered. In my polling station that I discovered, which was illegal in this last primary, they dedicated one machine for Democrats and one machine for Republicans. So if one machine happened to have farted and it suddenly stopped working, then one party's voting all got lost and the other party voting was fine, right? So now that I know that that's illegal, that it's supposed to whichever machine is available, and then the machinist has to hit some buttons to make sure it fits your party ballot, then that's that's how it's supposed to happen. So I'm going to be watching out at this next primary. I'm ready to go. I'm going to get them on all of it. So that's important to know. And the clerk helps with, so I talked about the big book. There's also a little yellow book, right? And in the yellow book, they list the number they read off is the number of voters that came in to vote that day. So if I'm voter number 25, they're putting the number 25 and then my name, and then they're giving that number to the person with the big book so they know. They track that that's how they track that you voted, or one of the ways they track that you voted. They put that number into the big book as well, okay? And so watchers often ask to check the yellow book. If you're a watcher for a candidate, you get to check the yellow book to see who voted that up until, at that point in time. So that's the yellow book they can look at, but you can't take a picture of it. You can't take it away. You can just take some notes on a piece of paper, but you can't take photos of it. So something to be aware of. So since we have handy dandy cameras on our cell phones, if you have a watcher that pulls out their phone and they start taking pictures, stop them. Put your hands all over the little yellow book. No. Right? So that's something to be aware of. Okay, so on page 4 in blue, there are some information about some links of places where I'm going to be posting this online at the Philly CLUW website so that you can go to the website and click on the links. Wow, tongue twister. So we got, and I believe the one on the top is a good place. There was a good video training that I watched. It was really good. It gave a really good breakdown of everything. It did not go into the machines as well as I had wanted it to, because apparently there are a variety of different machines, and so they didn't know which ones you're going to get, so they didn't get into specifics of the machines. And for the machinist, there is a sequence of buttons that you have to push after someone votes to process their voting and reset the machine for the next person. And if it's in a primary, then you're resetting the machine for whatever political party between the Democrats and Republican that they are. If you're in other independent, Greens, nonpartisan, whatever, you do not vote in the primary. But you do vote in the general.
You vote on the primary if they're ballot measures.
What?
If they're ballot measures, independents.
Yes, good point. Right. So any ballot measures, any questions like this last November, there was the question on the judges about whether or not they could retire at the age of 70, which is what was current, or pushing their age to 75. Granted, they written the questions so that it was very misleading, and that's why the concept of judges working until they were 75 won out, because there weren't enough people explaining to voters what the questions mean. They're written misleading for a reason. It's like the right to work laws. It's not that it's a right to work, it's a right to work for less. It's meant to take away the union's right for collective bargaining. And the union's right for collective bargaining is the reason why you have an 8-hour standard workday, a 40-hour standard work week. That's why you have weekends. That's why you have certain pay levels that you have, it's there because unions set the standard. And the right to work laws are really meant to take the collective bargaining out of the equation so that the corporations can choose what they do for you. And they do so little. So I'm not prejudiced on that one, really. So I just wanted to, a little clarification on that. Okay, so there are some trainings. You guys are really lucky in Philadelphia. You have the Committee of 70 that is amazing resource that you have. So you can check out their website. They also are part of your call center that if something goes wrong on election day, if you have a question you're not sure, you can call the Committee of 70 and they will answer your questions. In Delaware County, we have a headquarters that we called. I was on the phone at 7:15 in the morning for things that were going awry at my polling station. And I called them many times throughout the day, so much that one guy hung up on me because he knew the sound of my voice. I don't know. I'm doing my job. I don't understand what the problem was.
There's also something called election protection?
Yes. So in Delaware County, we had election protection people as well. They're a group of lawyers that work with whoever to create the election protection there, and some of them are students, or they're in law school, or they are active lawyers, and they basically hang out near polling stations where they know that there have been trouble in the past, and they basically kind of survey the voters as they come out to ask them about their voting experience. Did anyone ask for your ID? Did you feel like you were harassed to vote for any particular candidate? Or were you denied provisional ballots or anything like that? And they were keeping track of things, and they also reported back as well when there were problems throughout the realm. Did you have any? Did I cover it? Great. Okay, good. Awesome. All right. So time commitment. I'm on page 5. Just if you're following around on the handbook, time commitment. As I said, you're there anywhere from 6:15 to 6:30 in the morning until the polls close at 8 o'clock, and then you're there for the counting process. If there's a write-in campaign, you're there longer, just to let you know. So you could get out at 9, 10 o'clock at night at the very latest, hopefully very latest in some situations. It's a long day, but it's only 2 days out of the year, and you do get paid. A little bit. But you get paid. Where was that? I missed it. Okay, so I'll flow back to 4. So for the judges of elections, they get paid $100 for the day. And in Philadelphia, the inspectors, clerks, and machinists get paid $95, which is $5 more than Delaware County. So you get lucky. And if you go to the trainings, and you work the polls so if you go to a training provided by your county in April and you work the polls in May, you get a little more money. So just a little. And in some situations, you may get lunch paid for, or someone will provide you lunch. I find it's best to bring your own lunch or bring some snacks so that you have what you need for the day. You can also, there are slow times. So the busiest time is normally 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., right? And then there's a slowdown, right? And then 11 a.m. to about 1 or 2 p.m. or 1 p.m. and then a slowdown. And then 3 p.m. until the end. As kids get out of school, teachers are coming because they just got out of school. That's when, to the rest of the night. So in the slowdowns is when normally clerks and inspectors and judges of elections go and take a break, right? So they kind of cover for each other, and they take a half hour or an hour, and they go home, take a break, and then come back and reboot. So there is some leeway for that in most situations, but not all. So just prepare for a really long day, and if you get to go home and take a little break, that's awesome, right? So there are certain qualifications for judges of elections and inspectors. There is a statute that you can check out more specifically, but You must reside and be registered within the precinct/division and a member of your political party at least 30 days before the election. So if you're currently an independent and you want to run for election board as a Democrat or a Republican, then you need to make sure you register, that you're registered 30 days prior to the election itself, okay? You must be at least 18 years old. You must, and if you're currently holding a position like your city council, or you have a position from city, county, state, federal position, at least 2 months before the election, you must resign. But the only position you can hold on to is if you are currently an election board member and you're running for re-election, or if there's an opening, like if you're at your polling station, there is not a minority inspector, and you want to fill that void, you can get appointed as the minority inspector for 2017, and then also run for inspector or judge of election for 2018. So that is the only place where you can hold the position and be running for the position, per se, type of thing. Does that make sense? Okay, great. All right, so that's all that I had skipped. Okay, so we talked about petitions. We talked about that. Just want to make sure I'm covering. And everyone here, okay. Okay, so next year there is the committee person's election for the Democrats, or maybe it is for everyone. Okay, so Delaware County is different. The Republicans already had theirs. That was weird. Okay, but here, committee people run for office for their elected committee position in 2018. Committee members only get elected by the Republicans or Democrats of their party, and they only have a primary. And if you choose not to run for election board, but you want to be, if you think you're a very partisan person and you rather go the partisan plane and not have to be nonpartisan at any point in time, then maybe running for committee person's better for you. And in Philadelphia, there's only 2 elected committee people slots. So that is more competitive here in Philadelphia than some of the surrounding counties. Throughout the whole city, per division. Per division, yes, I'm sorry, good question. So in your division, there are 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans that are elected to committee person, and they're part of that gauntlet of people that you have to walk through to get to the election, to the polling station, right? So you have your committee people handing out the ballot of people that are running supported by the political party, and then you also have a gauntlet of people, watchers and greeters from different candidates that are handing out literature as you're coming through. In Delaware County, we call it the gauntlet because sometimes there's like 5 Republicans like hoarding around the door, and then like the one Democrat person's like handing out lit over here if you're lucky. In Delaware County, you can have 2 elected committee members, 2 appointed committee members, and then at-large committee members. So there's like a huge gauntlet option where you guys are a little more civil in some ways, and you have only 2 of each per polling station. So I think you reduce down on the gauntlet option a little bit. Then you have the candidate gauntlet, but that's a whole nother ball of wax. So if you feel that you are truly a partisan person, that might be the better role for you. If you're good with being nonpartisan, then definitely run for election board, right? We did say, I want to make sure, everyone in here is going to run for office, right? I'm asking you all to run for office, right? Okay, good. I just want to make sure. All right, so petitions we talked a little bit about. They start February the 14th on Valentine's Day. Hi, so if you go to a Valentine's Day party in your neighborhood, take your petition with you, okay? I'm going to Pennsylvania Progressive Summit next weekend. I'll be taking my petition with me in case there's anyone from my area, because I'm running for Upper Darby Township Council at large. So I'm going to take my petitions with me and, hopefully get signatures. Yes?
I have a question about at-large.
Yes.
So city council here in Philadelphia has a lot of at-large positions.
Right.
How does that work?
So at large is you're not specific to a ward. So you have some council members that are specific to a particular ward, and then people that are at large. As an at large, you're responsible for the entire county. And you are a representative of people of the entire county.
So say I'm interested in running for city council at large.
Right. Then you are responsible for the entire county.
So does that mean people from across the county get to sign it?
Everyone, anyone from any ward can sign your petition. And actually, it's good to get people from each ward to sign your petition to show that you're a well-rounded, at-large person. And especially in Philadelphia, because there's so many people that run for council, I would get as many signatures as possible, because they can challenge your signatures. And you want to make sure you have way more than what's required. So, okay? All right. All right, so we talked petitions. So, yes. Yes, I think we covered it. All right. Yes, please come up and I will make sure I have all my notes processed.
So in the packets you should have a checklist in there. So we tried to put this together to take all of the wonderful information Laura has just given us and distill it down into something that's just a little easier to run through. The period that we're in right now, we're just about to enter the petition period. Yeah. Oh, she's recording there, yeah. So we're just about to enter the petition period, which starts on Tuesday. This is probably the most vital time, is if you were running, you need to go through the steps of going and picking up the petition forms, go talk to your neighbors, get your signatures, everything along those lines. Some of you already have street lists. If you gave us the information ahead of time, we can help you out with picking up street lists, but you do have to go yourself to City Hall to get your petition forms. And then there's information on once you're in the primary period and once you're in the general election period. Technically, I don't think you actually have to do anything. We obviously are encouraging you to go out, meet your neighbors, continue to inform them that the elections are happening, that you want them to vote for you. There's a couple times on here when you're talking to your neighbors where it might be nice to have something to hand to them, leave them with a little flyer that tells you how amazing you are and how great you're going to make their lives, all sorts of information like that. We're happy to help you out with some of those things. Laura can talk some about.
Yes, so with the literature side of the equation, if you are printing it at home in your personal printer, please add labor donated. So all of my handouts say labor donated by Philly CLUW. That means that I didn't go out and pay for it to be printed, and I didn't choose a general printing realm. Or if you can afford to get it printed by a union print shop, then you're telling union members of your community that you support labor. So Staples is not a union print shop. And there was, prior to a month or so ago, there was a huge boycott. Unions were boycotting Staples because they were taking union jobs from the postal workers. Luckily, they have solved that problem, and the postal services that Staples was providing is going to be gone as of March. It was an attempt to privatize the postal service. And that's why there was a large boycott for a couple years on Staples. And as Nordstrom has encountered, there was a boycott of Nordstrom for some strange reason. And all of a sudden they made a line go away, and all of a sudden everyone's shopping there again. That's crazy how boycotts work. So they are effective, but if you want to let your union brothers and sisters that live in your community know that you respect them, putting labor donated tells them that you printed it at your home, and then or going to a union print shop and getting what's called a union bug on the label indicates that you respected them and got it done at a union print shop.
And what would be the union jobs here?
There are actually a lot of union print shops in Philadelphia, so I will make sure to get Nancy the list of union print shops in your area. And that includes, I have business cards on the table. I have a union bug on it. It's just a little emblem, a little image, that indicates what union printed it, and so forth. So it's their way of letting people know. Most of your literature by your candidates, not all candidates, but most candidates, has a union bug on it. And it's just acknowledging union workers and the work that they do. And that's the other thing is, definitely after the primary, you make it through the primary and so forth, your name is on the ballot. Actually, before the primary, there will be a drawing of ballot position that you need to go to be a part of the ballot position. You get to pick which, there's I guess it's out of a hat type of thing of what your ballot position is within the category of your whatever position you're running for. So whether you're the first person listed or the second person. And as you may have noticed that in election process, the top ballot person gets the most number of votes because everyone starts there. And by the time they make it down to the bottom, which is where the inspectors and judge of elections are, people slow down. And unless they hit straight one party or the other in the general election, but it doesn't help you in the primary. So you need to make sure you talk to your neighbors about finding, and that's the other thing, that after the ballot positions are assigned, to go back and talk to your neighbor and say, hey, I'm B29 or I'm A32. You want to make sure they find your name and hit your button. Because a lot of times if you got a lot of names on it, they don't make it down to the bottom. So you want to make sure people know to look for your name. And also that's why on election day, having something to give to them to take in with your ballot position on it is very handy, because then that way they're like, oh, B29, I got to make sure I hit that, So, that's all connected. And so the A's will be one party and the B's will be the other party for the primary part of the equation.
So March 15th is our ballot position drawing. That's on here. It is optional. You do not have to attend, but you are absolutely encouraged to attend. Either way, you can find your ballot information afterwards and get that printed. It's at 520 North Columbus. It's Columbus, did I do that right? Yeah. Yeah, 520 North Columbus.
Yes.
Yes. One other thing I wanted to talk about, on the back of your checklist, there are some stats that I pulled together based on the 2013 elections. I think maybe some of the most encouraging numbers of folks who got their name on the ballot in the primaries. 95% of those individuals made it through to the general election. If you made it through to the general election, 98% of those people were actually elected. These are very winnable positions. That's one thing I want to emphasize. These are very winnable positions. Towards the bottom, also, I talked a little bit about write-in candidates. Because we are such a heavily Democratic city and only one person makes it out of the Democratic primary for inspector, oftentimes there is no Republican candidate on there, so there is one person listed for inspector. And as Laura said, we have 2 inspector positions. So you can always run a write-in campaign as well. If you don't make it out of the primaries, you can run a write-in campaign. Sometimes, if you just write in your own name, you win.
Yep. And if you can get everyone in your household, if you have multiple voters in your household, and just get them to write in your name. So for the write-in, there are instructions on the voting machine, but basically you hit a button. And there's a slot that you have to push down so that you can write, and you have to bring a pen with you and write in the name. And then when you hit the process aspect, that screen will go up. The little slider will go up, and then your vote will be counted. If you are a judge of elections or you're friends with the judge of elections, make sure they count the write-in votes. Because they don't know, if they don't necessarily realize there was a write-in vote, they might not think to count it. I ran into that at my polling station. Actually, 2 years ago, we had 3 Democrats running for county council in Delaware County. The person who took their petition signatures into media didn't realize that media was jaded on one political party versus the other, and the person ended up turning it into the wrong desk. And therefore, that person at the desk did not hand it to the correct desk, and thusly allowed for them to not be on the ballot. So Delaware County Dems had to put a huge county-wide write-in campaign where we were teaching people how to do write-ins prior to the election and on election day, so that their names would show up on the general election. But that night, my judge of elections like, okay, we're done. I'm like, hey, what about the write-ins? And they're like, we don't have to count the write-ins. I was like, yes, you do. You have to count the write-ins. And they're like, oh, because that takes longer. So yeah, so you got to remind them to count the write-ins or verify that there are write-ins. Are there any questions? I know we hit you with a whole lot of information. You had a question?
To me, that sounds laborious, but I doubt there's that many write-ins. Is there really?
Mickey Mouse always gets write-ins. In this past election, I think in one area, Bernie Sanders got 45,000 write-ins.
I asked because I was encouraging kids this I worked for HeadCount, and I was encouraging folks to write in. So I was just curious how
Yes.
people really actually.
People do. When I grew up, I lived in Lower Merion. I was a Republican, but my dad, but as a kid, I remember going and helping to count the votes. I was in before 8 o'clock, and I was there, and I helped count the votes, and it was not digital machines, it was manual machines. And Mickey Mouse, every single election, got at least one write-in vote for Mickey Mouse. Donald Duck got a couple here and there, but Mickey Mouse always got one.
You legally change your name to Mickey Mouse and win a lot of elections.
Right. Oh, that's good. I had not thought of that. Are there any other questions? I know I hit you with a whole lot of information. Are there any other questions? Okay.
So one thing we'd like to put out there, so as Laura mentioned, once you get through the petition period and get your signatures on there, you do need to get that form notarized. We're holding a notary party sponsored by CLUW. It'll be at the Fieldhouse on March 2nd? March 2nd.
6 p.m.
So pretty much it's show up with your form all filled in. You'll do the back of it. You'll get it notarized. You will pay the fees directly to the notary that we'll have, but we'll have somebody there, hang out, have drinks with us, just have a good time kind of thing. So we're going to do our best to support you through this whole process.
And also keep in mind, if running for office is not your thing, become a notary. Notaries are in high demand around this time of the year, just as an